This is a Ben Frank Connection presentation.
Hello there.
Hello.
What's going on? Welcome to another brand new episode of Wrestling with Life.
Indeed.
I'm your host, the King Ralph. Again, with my, as always, esteemed co-host, Parmesan. Sean, what is going on?
What's going on? Another episode.
Yeah.
I think we're on episode 10.
This is our official episode number 10.
Crazy.
Yes, it has been
what is going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been great. The first 9 episodes have been great so far. We're looking forward to a great episode 10 here. Should be a lot of fun. But before we hop right into that, just want to tell you, if you're a Patreon, you're watching this on Monday.
Correct.
And if you're not a Patreon, first off, why are you not a Patreon? Because we've got wonderful, great things for you over there at patreon.com/OpinionCityPod. Got great rewards for you, and you get all the episodes of Wrestling with Life 5 days early.
Yep.
If you are not a member of the Patreon and you have not yet joined and gotten all your wonderful rewards, then you will be seeing this on Friday over on our YouTube channel. So, get over to Patreon, check it out. We love the support. It always helps us. It's a great thing for us. So,
indeed,
we're excited for this episode. But before we hop in, just if you'd like to support us, in addition to Patreon, we've got some free ways you can support us as well. And 3 easy ways, again, 100% free. Hit that thumbs up button to let us know that you like what we're doing. Let us know that you enjoy these episodes. Smash that subscribe button. Absolutely smash it. Listen, tell your friends, your family, just smash the crap out of it. Take a picture of it, smash the picture. And then number 3, hit that share button to let everyone that you know that you enjoy the Opinion City podcast and the Wrestling with Life podcast.
Yes.
So in addition to that, guys, you can buy some merch.
Buy the merch.
Because we've got lots of merch.
So much merch.
We've got all kinds of stuff. We've got our WrestleMania logos from a couple weeks ago. But we've got great logos like our Opinion City podcast, Dungeons and Dragons logo. We've got all kinds of cool stuff. We've got Wrestling with Life merch. So
Team Canva for the win.
Yeah, so we'll have those links in the description below. So please, if you are so inclined to support us, buy some merch. You can follow us online at Opinion City Pod to not only find out everything we're doing here at Wrestling with Life, but find out what we're doing with the Opinion City podcast as well. You can follow us at Ben Frank Connect, where you will find out not only about Wrestling with Life and Opinion City, but you will learn about the ABJ podcast, the Tornado Tag podcast, 5 Questions with ABJ. There's so much content there. And guys, keep an eye out on that Ben Frank Connect social media, because we've got some really cool stuff coming up, and we may be adding some more content soon. So please keep an eye out for that. And then finally, of course, follow and support our guests, because that's the reason we're here. We love to teach people about our guests. We love to give people the opportunity to learn about our guests. And so we love it if you follow and support us, but we really, really love it if you follow and support our guests. Absolutely.
So,
all right,
Ralph, why don't
it's time.
Tell us who we get on this special episode 10.
All right. For episode 10, we have a very special guest we are super excited about. She is a photographer, a professional wrestling photographer, which to me is always a really exciting thing. I've known a couple of people who were professional wrestling photographers before, but never got to really, sit down and kind of pick their brain and chat about it. And so I'm really excited to we have as our special guest today, Ami Moregore, who is a professional wrestling photographer. Hello.
Hello. Hi, folks.
Hey, what's going on? All right.
Oh, it's just a beautiful day in Philly.
Yeah.
Philly.
Another beautiful day. Weather's been really nice lately. I hear we could be getting some rain moving forward, but weather's been really nice. Held up well for WrestleMania, which was nice. Well, listen, if you were, it was a little windy, and some people may have been a little cold, but it's Philly. I don't think I've ever been to Philly at a time where it hasn't been windy. Like everywhere I go in Philly, it's like windy.
Which day was worse for you, Ralph? Night 1 or night 2?
Probably night 1. I think because I think night 2 was a little bit warmer to start out with. We did try and buy a blanket on night 1, and they were completely sold out everywhere.
Oh.
We checked as soon as we got there on night 2, and we found one.
Nice.
But it was, in general, kind of a little chilly, but manageable.
For me, my WrestleMania week began on Monday, and so I had 3 shows that were outdoors, especially while it was raining. So
the rain was terrible.
The rain was bad.
Yeah, we experienced the rain fully on Wednesday, but
yeah.
Before we get too far into our WrestleMania talk here, let's kind of start at the beginning a little bit, and how does one such as yourself get into the wonderful world of photography?
Well, like anything involved with wrestling, you're pretty much going to start off as a fan, and I just remember the folks that run New York Wrestling Connection inviting me in to work ringside. New York Wrestling Connection is based out of Deer Park in Long Island.
Gotcha.
Marty Bell was also very early to say that she enjoyed my photography.
Nice.
Which, when I look back to when she was saying that, I feel like she was being very, very kind. Because like with anything, as you get further and further into the weeds, you improve, and it hurts to look at those old photos.
Believe me, I look back at some of our old shows and I think the same thing. I'm like, look how far we've come.
And that's just kind of how it continues. You just network, you make connections, and you get invited to work other places.
Right.
As you do work for wrestlers individually, maybe the promoter will be like, hey, we could use this style for our ringside stuff or to do promos for us.
Sure.
Promo photos being the images of just a wrestler by themselves. I think some people call them renders. But and so, that's just one of the different types. But primarily, I'm an action photographer.
Nice.
I like freezing time. And, that's just where I think I do a bit better on.
How do you make sort of like the magic happen? Because there has to be obviously a way to get the motions. That way it's not like, how, because like in regular phones, you try and get motion and it almost never works.
So I'm old enough. I'm 42. I have no problem with my age. I'm old enough to remember working with old 35 millimeters in school back when they actually showed you how to develop your own film, how to work your own settings. And so one of the things to remember is as technology increases, there's frequently a emphasis on an automatic mode. And as with say manual transmission driving versus automatic transmission, manual is more efficient if you know what you're doing, but it is a bit more difficult. Same with my cameras. I never will have it on auto, and your phones are making all sorts of decisions for you. And they are making a best guess, but they're really not designed at their automatic levels. They're not really designed to capture what you really want to capture.
Sure. So photography for you, was this something that started out as a hobby? Was it something that you studied somewhere, or are you self-taught? How did photography really kind of take shape in your life?
Oh gosh, so I do recall high school, in which I did just hang around a photography room for years before I took an actual photo class. A mentor, if you will, was a teacher who just said, hey, if you don't want to hang out in the lunchroom, you could always come to the photo room. And so I spent my time there, and I learned it well before I took an official class. And when I finally did take a class, I just had to tell them, I'm not taking it with you. We're two good friends here. we can't stand this, so I'm going to see you with the other teachers. And so that was my intro to photography there with, I believe we were using Minoltas back then. I couldn't tell you what type, but I do recall once I got to college, I did get a Canon, oh golly, now it's escaping me, but it was I bought a used 35 millimeter camera that was the official camera for the 1984 Olympics. So that was
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I bought it in the year 2001 or 2002, and
right.
you know, so it was cheap.
Yeah.
It was cheap, but it worked. And honestly, that's also the same advice that I got to anyone who wants to get started. Go ahead, try used or rent. Get something cheap.
Yeah.
Learn how to work with it. Work with your constraints and see what art you can make from it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, photography has definitely been around with me for a while. And I just simply invested in more gear and it becomes a thing. Like if you know any drummers, you might have seen how they start off with a little tiny drum kit and then you just keep on adding more and more gear. And it becomes,
Yeah.
I'm in a tiny room, and you can see just a little bit of the drum pieces behind me there. Yeah, because I'm trying. I've got an actual keyboard in the corner next to the drums now. But that's a good way to look at it. Is just you start off very little, and you kind of build yourself up, and the more that you learn. Now, is this something that you're doing as a side job? Is this something that you have been able to make a full-time career?
Unfortunately, it's still just a side job for me. Pay in wrestling is definitely a difficult thing because if you compare the rates that you would normally get from anything else, concert photography pays me substantially more than wrestling photography ever will.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless maybe I make it to some big company, but at the same time, my inner punk refuses to let me work for a corporate wrestling company.
Oh, yeah.
So I see you have your WWE belts there, but I never want to work with them. AEW, I vaguely wanted to back when a bunch of my friends were starting to work there with their early days, but now I've lost all interest in it. So
Right.
corporate wrestling just isn't for me.
Yeah, that's easy to understand.
Right. So, what's been some of your favorite indie shows that you've had the chance to work in, get photos of?
Oh golly! First off, that's Trap.
That's right. I said some of your favorites, not your favorites.
Yeah, we didn't.
Well, the thing is that I'd like to think that I have a balanced diet in terms of the wrestling that I enjoy. So I enjoy my comedy. I enjoy my deathmatch. I enjoy my real ground-based mat grapplers.
Right.
Sure.
So, it's really hard to pick a favorite, but I can say that few people can do comedy like interspecies wrestling.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Few people provide the variety of both deathmatch and just an excellent mix of homegrown talent like H2O.
Right.
Sure.
And few people are as experimental as, say, Sean Henderson, who certainly experiments a great deal. If anything, I see him as a successor to On Point, even though they were running concurrent for a while. Sean is just experimenting so much, and it's just fun to watch that.
And him and Billy Avery pulled off two, I think, fantastic shows during Mania Week with Russell John and Euphoria. So
and those were the rainy shows that I was at.
Yeah,
yeah.
They were,
That first night standing in like an inch of water watching this show.
We were standing in basically puddles,
rough.
just giant puddles. Yeah, it was the rain was bad,
rough,
but the matches were fantastic.
Yeah, it was a great time. It's funny you mentioned interspecies wrestling. I just noticed, and this will probably date this episode, but I just noticed today they announced they're no longer doing food fights.
Correct.
Yeah. I just saw that online. I was like, oh, that's kind of sad.
which
sad.
everyone, please read the full tweet. They're not closing down interspecies. They're just not doing food fights anymore.
The way
Right.
the tweet showed up, it looked like they were like it looked bad, and then you're like, oh, they're just getting rid of food fights. Still a little sad, but
it's still sad, but not.
All right, so what would you say is probably because you've done the action shots, you've done a lot of promo pictures, what would you say are probably maybe the biggest name you've worked with as far as maybe like promo shots or something along those lines?
Onita.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
Awesome.
Wow. What
That's
was that
amazing.
Like? Dude.
So I did notice from the first promoter that I worked with that brought Onita to the States that there is a when you're working with Japanese talent, what you need to do is, especially if they're not fully fluent in English, but they know enough, is that you need to slow down. And I know that I can be a bit fast when I talk, especially when I'm excited, because if it's a wrestling show, I've got to let a lot of adrenaline flowing through me. So I talk fast.
Yeah.
And so you got to force yourself to slow down. But Onita's wife is fluent in English, and she's been very nice to me, and usually is our go-between sometimes. But for the most part, just hang out and just let him do his thing, and then just take natural photos of him.
That's awesome.
Being
really cool.
being in certain promotions, working with certain wrestlers, do you find yourself sort of marking out? Have you gotten to a point now where it's just like commonplace, like you're for example, let me just throw this out there. So we're at Attic Brewing, and it's Big Dan Champion's birthday party.
Yep.
And you turn in one direction and there's Chuck Taylor, you turn in the other direction, there's Orange Cassidy, and certain people will really get like excited, and then other people who have been around this for a long time will be just like, okay, I'm just in a bar and there's Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. Like, have you gotten to a point where it just kind of doesn't phase you anymore? Or do you still mark out a little bit when you see certain wrestlers?
So hopefully I'm not destroying too many illusions back here, but every wrestling show feels almost like a reunion because there is a strong culture of greeting everyone fondly.
Right.
And I think it stems from the idea that many of them who are in the ring have the power of life and death over each other. So if they cannot be fraternal with one another, how can they not share a ring and do these death-defying stunts with each other? Sure. So this goodwill extends to the staff as well. And so as support staff, because clearly I have never laced up boots and anything like that.
Right.
I'm included in this, and if anything, it brings the humanity of the wrestler to me. And so as a result, a lot of I think the fact that I got into it very late in life, I was like 36, 37 when I got into it, I kind of had gotten a lot of my celebrity worship burnt out of me. And so as a result, I'm seeing these folks, and, I remember when Orange Cassidy was just simply a local talent.
Sure.
I remember when Chuck Taylor was a local talent. So to use those examples, I do recall, though, I'm not going to say this colleague's name, but he is prominent, and he actually is the co-owner of a prominent gym, dojo, but I'm not going to say his name. He was just in awe the first time we both met Zandig and Nick Gage.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
While I hadn't met either of them, by that point, I had already gotten into the whole, hey, we're working here, we're backstage for a reason.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to egg him on, saying, no, go ahead, say hi to him.
Yeah.
It's what's expected anyway.
Sure. It's interesting that you bring that up. I kind of had a moment when we were at Attic Brewing during Mania week, because we're there and we're podcasters, and we're doing our thing and whatever, and we were clearly visible in the corner there. We had our whole setup, so
Yeah.
it's not like you really missed us. But I will say that we were there early in the day. Wednesday we were there early because we needed to get on the Wi-Fi before they started the stream. And so Thursday we were there early because Fox 29 News from Philadelphia came and taped a segment. And so we were there pretty much the whole day. And there were times when wrestlers came into the building for the show, they would come over and introduce themselves to us and shake our hand. And I'm like, I'm nobody. Like,
yeah, right.
I'm about to go have a beer as soon as they start serving. And like I'm nobody. Like I'm not, but again, it's very interesting. You bring up that culture and you bring up this idea of, everybody kind of working together, and just that mutual respect you see from these people sometimes is just incredible.
It's drilled into many very early on in their training to humble themselves as well too. And I guess that's the other reason why I get the vibe of indie wrestling so much more.
Right.
I don't know if it's still common practice in the televised companies, but that's one thing that I will appreciate, that you're just seen as an asshole if you're I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
You're just seen as a jerk if you don't.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Nick Gage there. I will say I did have a moment where I freaked out for Nick Gage one time.
There you go.
I will say that it's warranted though. It's got warrant.
I mean, yeah.
But okay,
it's Nick Gage.
So you're in Philly, so I don't know how much, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I used to go to Chikara shows all the time. I was a regular at Chikara, and so of course, the place that everyone would go and eat after Chikara, a lot of people would go right down the street to Sweet Lucy's Barbecue.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So normally we would go after the show. However, I believe Chikara was having like a later show that day. Usually they would do like either afternoons or they would do double headers. Well, this was like a single night show. So we decided to go to Sweet Lucy's ahead of time. To my knowledge, he wasn't there for the Chikara show. I know that. Mm-hmm. And to my knowledge, he wasn't doing anything else in the area that I was aware of. However, we go to eat at Sweet Lucy's and the line is out the door, and in the line is Nick Gage standing right there. And we get out of the car and we're like, my friend's looking, he's like, I think that's Nick Gage. And I look over and I'm like, holy crap.
That's Nick Gage.
Like there he is standing in front. I mean,
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I've seen that guy do some things. And I'm like, wow, dude's just, getting some barbecue. Like
he's got to eat too.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like this kind of moment where you realize like I said, I'm sitting in Attic Brewing and people are shaking my hand, and I'm nobody. And these people, like, who knows what they, like, hours before that they could have been, getting something. Like you get this realization that like you're really not that much different than this person.
Yeah,
which is crazy to think about sometimes.
Well, I guess I think back to, as trite as it is, the old Beavis and Butthead episode where Mr. Van Wheelen, or whatever the hippie teacher's name was, when he showed Beavis and Butthead his student film in which a green guy and a purple guy stab each other and they're both bleeding red and they realize the futility of war. When you see them bleeding, that should remind you of your humanity.
Yeah.
Right.
And you've certainly seen lots of Nick blood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's very
boy.
true.
Yeah.
So he mentioned that you've got into wrestling late. So I'm curious as to what was the first show or match that like got you hooked into it in the first place.
So I got involved late in life. My very first show was 1997 ECW at Elizabeth High School's Dunn Sports Center.
Hell yeah, that's
Nice.
awesome. I love that.
There's some Philly street
That's
cred.
awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
My spouse is born in Philly. I am from Elizabeth, New Jersey. So
Hey,
Oh,
Jersey,
wow.
what's up?
very good.
Yeah. I'm
Well,
in
you're from
Pennsylvania.
South
Sean-
Jersey, so whatever.
Yeah.
I'm in Central Jersey. South is not Central. It's Central.
No, well, listen, we've had this conversation.
I had one
on
yes so far.
Opinion City about we had a lengthy conversation about the existence.
I will die on that
reality
hill. I
of
swear,
Central
I will
Jersey.
die on that hill.
I remember the NJ.com survey, and basically the equator starts like around Rahway or so, and there you start to get to Central New Jersey.
Wow.
Whatever. It was a self-reported survey, and
Oh, good.
So you were obviously a fan of wrestling, getting inducted in the best possible way through ECW.
well, my very first watching experience was oh my goodness, Ron Bass. There we go. Oh my goodness, I know his son.
What
so
a
why was I
name.
blanking on his name?
Yeah.
So Ron Bass taking spurs to Brutus the Beefcake Barber. Oh my gosh,
Brutus the
that's
Barber
a tongue twister.
Beefcake.
And a giant red X covering the screen.
Oh
saying
yes,
Simpson.
Oh,
That was my
right.
very first experience watching
That's
wrestling
awesome.
outside the cartoons based on Hulk Hogan
Right,
and
yeah.
his
Right.
friends living in a junkyard.
Hogan's Heroes and all that stuff.
yeah, that's great.
And so, yeah, I was terrified, but
Oh,
I
sure.
couldn't stop watching.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. So watching wrestling. Did you have any particular favorites? People that you really kind of enjoyed watching?
Of course, growing up, you're on the bandwagon. So, of course, as a kid, you're going to want to love the champ if it's a good guy champ.
Right.
But when I started to really develop some opinions, I was just realizing, wow, this Bret Hart guy really is good. And then eventually he becomes champion.
Yeah.
And then you realize, wow, Owen Hart, even though he's always the bad guy, he's really good. And so, I know that we also had some of the early NWA before it became WCW shows. So I do remember enjoying Z-Man, Tom Zenk.
Oh wow, yeah.
Wow.
Vader.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so Doom, when it was Butch Reed and Ron Simmons.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
Oh,
my
that's-
early
Yeah.
appreciations. But then finally started seeing Cactus Jack. I remember the first time I ever saw Cactus Jack, he was apparently making some sort of return, and Sting threw a punch at him, and Cactus Jack just ate it like nothing. And I thought, oh my goodness, he feels no pain.
Right.
Yeah.
And Cactus Jack, then eventually Mankind, and then Dude Love. Like, there we go. That became my guy.
Yeah.
You're my perfect kind of guest because we can relate on these things. Because I will tell you a quick story. We had Pete Corvus on our show, and we interviewed him, and we talked to him about
Good guy.
as we do with most people come on, what was your wrestling fandom like growing up and things like that. And he's like,
oh yeah,
well, when I was a kid, I can remember watching John Cena and Kurt Angle on SmackDown, and I'm like, I can remember watching Jake the Snake beat up nobodies on WWF Superstars.
Right.
I'm like, we are miles apart.
We are
here, man.
miles
We are
in age.
worlds apart.
Miles
And
apart.
It always makes me feel so old because all these people that come on here, they're talking about again, it seems like every person has watched John Cena when they were a kid, and I'm like, I was in college watching John Cena.
Our most recent guest, episode 49, Don Freeze, we learned is only 22, and he's been doing this since he was 19, 3 years ago. Yeah.
So everyone
is
is eminently younger than me, and I feel like sometimes I don't have anybody to, really relate to the things I bring up.
Right.
There is going to be a bias towards, wrestlers being younger because, of course, cartilage again, as we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, time is a constant moving factor, and we just got to deal with the fact that everyone's going to see it from a different period of time. Read the Lou Fez book, and you'll see how he looked up to certain people And then, of course, he has that 6-decade spanning career.
Right.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, at some point, someone's first match was Lou Thesz throughout any of the 6 decades that he actually wrestled.
Yeah, could you
Crazy.
imagine?
Crazy.
Yeah, that's
And his
really
final match was 1990
Oh, was it?
yeah.
against
Okay.
Masahiro Chono, one of his students.
And
I was one.
it's interesting because when you talk about names like Luthez and things like that, for people that are in our generation of wrestling fans, we're getting to a point where a lot of our heroes, a lot of the people that we looked up to are now passing away. We're getting at
Yeah.
that age where a lot of
Mhm.
people, you wonder who's going to be next, because again,
Yeah,
all of
unfortunately.
those wrestlers are getting to an age now where, for whatever reason, we're slowly losing our heroes, and it can be a little sad. But I
Yeah.
get what you were saying about the Lou Thez book. I read Pat Patterson's book, and it was like it was like reading an account of an entirely different world. It was unbelievable how, because it really puts things into perspective about, we talk about generational wrestlers, but we don't
Mhm.
necessarily talk about like the culture of the generation that they were in.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a lot to, you talking about today's culture of the independent world, and then trying to wrap your head around the culture that, these people that were big wrestlers in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, those that, kind of pioneered and brought the sport to a point where we could start seeing it on TV and seeing it
Right.
in homes and really becoming a part of the fabric. But it's crazy to think how different things were.
Yeah.
What's also startling is seeing how many things are the same, because people will will have a certain stereotype of what wrestling must have looked like in the 50s.
Right.
Mhm.
But then you have Lou Thesz doing power bombs.
Yep.
You have blood in matches.
Mm-hmm.
You, I assure you, you're going to see some amazing stuff if you look at some of the archival footage from that time. You're going to see some stuff that you love. In fact, if
Mhm.
anything, I'm someone that photographs hardcore death matches regularly.
Right.
Sure.
And one of my favorite matches that Lou Thesz did ended with a hammerlock. A hammerlock, which
That's
is frequently
awesome.
seen today as just a transitional hold.
Mhm.
Yep.
Sure.
Have you ever been put in a hammerlock?
I have not.
No.
I can only imagine.
It actually hurts, especially if someone torques it up enough.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So,
I mean, there are just so many moves that are used nowadays that were finishers back then. Like the powerbomb was a finisher. The DDT, Jake the Snake, was a finisher. It wasn't just a
How many
transitional move.
how many matches ended in, sleeper holds or
Yeah,
very very
like
basic,
very basic
like you
holds
say,
now. Yeah,
transitional moves that we look at today as just, very basic, and that was, something that people built their repertoires around.
yeah,
It's very interesting stuff when you look at the history of wrestling, when you don't just look at it as, like we think of, we get this thought in our head that the history of wrestling is what we know of it. And so for us, the history only goes back so far. But then when you actually start to take a look at the overall history of things, and where wrestling has come from, you get to see some really interesting stuff in like you
Yeah.
said, the archival footage, and just taking the time to view some of that older stuff. Is there someone that you wished you would have had the opportunity to photograph that you never really did have the opportunity to photograph?
oh golly. I mean, sure, it would have been nice to have photographed Bret Hart.
Mhm.
I have
Mhm.
photographed Mick Foley, but that was when he was inducting Mikey Whipwreck into the New York Wrestling Connection Hall of Fame.
Wow,
Oh, okay.
very nice.
Cool. Very cool.
Uh, If anything, I wish I was photographing Lufisto more often, because I think Lufisto
yeah.
is
Oh,
a
yeah.
living legend that deserves more accolades, and I would love to photograph her matches more often.
Yeah.
She's fallen out of favor. I don't know why. I don't care for why. I know
Sure.
that she's still a strong advocate for women in wrestling, and she has her
Absolutely.
place, and she deserves to be seen more.
Right.
Yeah, I've known some independent wrestlers that got to work with her very early on in their career. Shortly after maybe getting out of wrestling school and really kind of starting their journey on live matches, and they got to work with her, and they've had nothing but great things to say about her. I've seen her in person a number of times, and yeah, I definitely think she's one that doesn't get enough credit, because she's, she can be a bit of a controversial person just because of the fact that, she is such a strong advocate for women's wrestling in some places where that is decidedly frowned upon, unfortunately. So yeah, you really hit a nail on the head there with that one. That's a really good point you made about her.
Long story short, she literally had to fight in the Court of Human Rights for her right to wrestle men in Quebec, or was it
Wow.
Ontario?
Wow.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
Yes, it was Ontario, I believe,
Jeez.
actually. And so, yeah, this was a court case that went up high because, big spoilers, wrestling is, fake. And so
we like to use the word predetermined.
predetermined.
Yeah.
And so,
That's better.
yes,
That's better.
she had to explain it's not a sporting competition. This is
Right.
more so a collaborative effort between both parties in the ring.
Yeah.
Why is she being denied her right to do this? And she got a ruling in her favor and got
That's
it cleared.
awesome. That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah, if anything, she has granted other people the ability to in her home country, so that this is never a thing again.
Yeah.
I even remember a case that happened in Brooklyn, 2017, I believe, in which a member of the state athletic commission forgot the rules temporarily about intergender wrestling in New York. And yeah, that was a big to do.
That's crazy.
Sure.
Yeah. And golly, that was just such a weird mix up there. Ultimately, it was brought to his attention that he confused the rules for boxing with wrestling.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Jeez.
Good job.
How convenient.
Good job.
Crazy.
Great. You love that.
Well, and this kind of conversation is, it creeps its head up in very weird places. Most recently, when you look at the Hall of Fame that just happened, and you look at Thunderbolt Patterson's speech, and this is fresh in my mind because I literally just watched it today. But his speech revolves heavily around this idea that racism, unfortunately, is still alive in some places in wrestling, and this is something that the things that went on when he was active to a point are still going on today, and he's advocating for this to stop. And I feel like the sexism against women in wrestling at times can be just as prevalent as that, especially when you watch certain television shows and certain companies where they say that we support women's wrestling, and then the women get 2 minutes on television out of a 3-hour show.
Right. Yep.
It's still there in certain forms, and it's ridiculous to think these days that we could even be still talking about that.
Yeah. Very true.
Well, there is a great deal of the system that is geared toward that. Someone on YouTube who recently had a really great way of framing this was FD Signifier on his view on black wrestling. And while I don't watch televised wrestling, I love the way that he framed the New Day, in which there was an example where Yes, it was Kofi Kingston was trying to run a gauntlet and just came up short.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was up to him, with the support of his community, with his tag partners, for the subsequent tag team gauntlet, in which they prevailed, and even had further support from the Usos to go further when the Usos forfeited when they knew that they could have overwhelmed them.
Yeah.
And it resulted in Kingston getting that shot. I remember being backstage,
Oh yeah.
and wasn't backstage for WWE.
No.
This was backstage 2019 for the collective show.
Oh,
And
cool.
I was with some of the Chikara students, and I forgot all of their names, but I recall one of the students was black, and he was so excited as he was watching Kingston winning, and it meant so much to him. And that was just an amazing experience to witness it through him. I couldn't care about the TV product, but I did care about how excited this young man was getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Let's transition over a little bit. Let's talk about what you did Mania week. So
Yeah.
let's
go.
let's run down some of your
Let's go.
shows
So many
Mania
bad
week and
decisions.
what you're
So many bad decisions. Oh no.
So this
Oh no.
So starting off by describing your Mania week experience as so many bad decisions.
So many bad
is,
decisions.
that may be a loaded way to start off this part of the show. But let's talk about what you did Mania week. You said you started off on Monday.
Yep.
Yes, I did. So Monday, I began with H2O's Monday Night Death number 5.
Nice.
Occasionally, they do some shows on Monday nights as an alternative. In fact, some of you may remember a few years ago, before IWTV was really solidified, a consortium of independent wrestling promotions came together and came up with something called Raw Alternative.
Yes, I do remember that. It was a bit. It was a huge movement in the indie scene.
Right.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And so, H2O occasionally will run that. And this, of course, was the 5th time that they did this.
Awesome.
It was not all death matches. It did begin with a hardcore rumble. And so that was
interesting.
Rumbles are always funny because maybe I do have ADD. I don't know. I've never been formally diagnosed. My spouse keeps telling me to do so.
Maybe.
So you get a little overwhelmed with all of the action going on in so many different angles.
Right.
But of course, you're also just trying to not get in the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I'm pretty sure everyone got their money's worth with seeing all those wrestlers just bonking each other over the head with various weapons. And a number of international talents had come to H2O for this because they had multiple Mania Week bookings.
Yeah.
So it included oh my goodness, I forget what he was calling himself. Rugged Vic Craig. He's from New Zealand.
Okay.
Okay.
He apparently was a pioneer of deathmatch wrestling in New Zealand.
Very cool.
And of course, Joel Bateman from Deathmatch Down Under.
Yeah.
He was there for the entire week, and so it was great catching up with him, because the last time I had met him, I kind of pressured him into being a go-between between a mutual friend of ours to deliver a print. But I also think that I probably had a ton of adrenaline in my system when I was asking for him to do that.
Oh boy.
So I felt like I was bugging him, and so I apologized profusely, and he's super cool about it, and he's like, don't worry about it. And so I have since talked to him with significantly less adrenaline in my system. So
Right.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. One thing that I will say about my experience with deathmatch wrestling is that I will experience so much adrenaline that I will forget what happened. So I am actually looking at photos right now to give myself a reminder of what happened. There we go.
I'm sure you saw so many things that week.
I was going to say, while you're looking at your photos, I'm curious to ask you, when you're out there in a deathmatch, I'm sure you're like in the middle of it, like maybe in like in the thick of it sometimes, not Oh, it's from afar.
On the meat shield for the front row.
I was gonna say. So how do you like dodge all of the craziness going on? You're just like you're just kind of in the line of fire.
There's some things that you dodge, and there's some things that you don't dodge. Things that you'll dodge are bigger projectiles, like
Right.
trash can lids, chairs. Those I will dive out of the way.
Right.
Or, of course, other wrestlers.
Oh yeah.
But for other things, there's no way that you're dodging glass. It just moves too fast.
Yeah.
And fortunately, my main camera for when I'm shooting death matches, and this is my main lens for when I'm doing it, is rather large, and so it provides me a lot of protection.
That's
Makes
good.
sense.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Also, because COVID is still real, I am masked for every single show I attend.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
the mask will protect me to a degree. At the very least, I'm not chewing on glass.
Yeah.
I used to wear safety glasses. I really should get back into the habit, but I'm not really wearing safety glasses like I used to because, unfortunately, the combination of the mask does tend to fog it up, and I'm already wearing my glasses as it is.
Yeah.
Masks
That's
can
not
be tough.
easy. Yeah.
Safety glasses will still slide down a little bit, and I'll still catch glass in my eye anyway, so it feels redundant to me.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Pre-mask wearing, though, it probably was just fine to wear it and just have it pushed up as far as possible. But
Right.
it's not as practical as it used to be for me.
Gotcha.
In fact, I recall my very first deathmatch show. I managed to. So this is called a lens hood, and you use it to block off excessive light.
Yeah.
And my very first match with a glass pane. My second match with a glass pane, because the first one was Jonathan Gresham going through a glass pane.
Oh, nice.
Jonathan Gresham in a death match.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's insane.
Amazing and awesome. Yeah.
But
cool.
my second one, they set up more glass panes, and I was right in front of it. And I recall I literally turned around and said to the deceased superfan, Hogan.
Oh,
you remember Hogan? Yeah.
Yeah,
I turned around and I said to him, I'll protect you from the glass. Literally, they began it by drop kicking one of the guys through the glass, and I upended my hood so that I could get all of the glass out of my lens.
Oh, Jesus. That's crazy.
I thought I was being flippant when I said that.
More power to you. I could not. That's oh man.
All right. So
that's Monday.
We're gonna get way off the topic just for a moment here because I have to ask this, and I will ask both of you because I know Sean is more into it than I am. I have never been one to be into death matches. I will say that I have a sort of morbid fascination with them. I went to a convention one time and there was a guy that sold DVDs of all kinds of Japanese death matches, and he had like a sampler DVD that he gave out for free. And I went home and watched that, and I was very intrigued by it. How does one get into deathmatch wrestling? How does one become a fan of deathmatch wrestling? Like what draws you to that you look at it and go, yeah, so there's guys that are going to go to the hospital after this match for like 48 stitches and staples. Right. And like I have a very close up of one, and I don't even remember who at this moment, but one of the wrestlers from Euphoria that had a thumbtack in his eyeyelid.
Yeah.
Connor Claxton.
Yes, that's right.
Connor Claxton.
I have a really good close up of that. And like, how do you, okay. So how does one get into that? How does one become a fan?
How did you become a fan?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, ECW, I was in my mid to late teens watching ECW. And after my very first show, I went to the merch table, and there was a video seller who has since been on To Catch a Predator.
Oh,
hey.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm not giving him a shout out.
Nope, because I know what you're talking about.
No.
But he was selling a DVD called The Best of Cactus Jack in Japan. And I was thinking, well, I love Cactus Jack. I was not prepared for what I was seeing in there. Everyone talks about the Kawasaki Deathmatch tournament. No. This was more than that.
Right.
The first match was a no rope barbed wire match with Terry Funk that included fire, chairs, etc. I had never seen anything like it.
It's wild.
Then there were matches against Leatherface with
wild
brick pallets and more barbed wire pits. And then there was glass pits with Wing Kanemura. And it was just, I was not prepared for all of that. Because for me, I thought the height of hardcore was just smacking people around with chairs.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And seeing that, it was just, I didn't know how to process it. I just couldn't stop watching.
Yeah, yeah.
But to the point of people going to hospitals to get stitched up, while yes, that is true in some cases, but let's not forget, wrestling itself is dangerous. Someone will suffer a great...
Absolutely.
Apply a submission hold with just too much torque, and you are ripping ligaments on someone.
Yeah.
You know, someone takes a suplex, like Mick Foley said himself, the German suplex he thinks is far more deadly than any of the things he did when he was doing death matches.
Yeah. Because one false move and your neck's broken.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's it.
Jeez.
Yeah. I think for me, it was just being able to experience one live. Like I've watched clips of death matches, but never like a full one.
Yeah.
And then right before COVID hit, literally like January 2020, me and my buddy, there's a show in Tom's River where I live, and they advertised the After Dark show was a death match with Brandon Kirk versus Crazy Kid. And I was like, Brandon Kirk, I'm in. But first of all, yes. And man, I was with my friend who's not as much of a wrestling fan, but he's still a fan. I brought him to it, and the first thing they do is they grab all the weapons and just go for it. And I'm like, Chewy, let's go this way. Start circling. It's gonna get crazy.
Yeah.
And it was, but I enjoyed it because even though there was a lot of violence, they were telling a story in the ring as well as using the weapons for the story.
Okay.
Like, in my eyes, there's still a story in death matches, but there's also a lot of violence in them as well. It's like a nice balance of both.
So here is a death match that definitely tells a story. So we were talking about this young gentleman who had thumbtacks in his eyebrows, Connor Claxton.
Yep.
One of the most definitive matches I ever saw of him live was his match against Danny Havoc to join the faction that they're in, the Nation of Intoxication, because they all love drinking.
Love that name.
It was a glass plate death match.
Oh.
And Connor Claxton had been put through multiple pains, but he wasn't giving up. He wasn't saying die.
Right.
And he grabbed Danny Havoc and put him in a kata hajime. So Danny Havoc tried to get out of it by putting him through yet another pane of glass. And it looked like Connor had passed out from the pain because shock is a thing.
Yeah,
sure.
For sure.
But instead, after 2 seconds, Connor's eyes flew open and he screamed and he torqued that kata hajime even more. And Danny Havoc was close to tapping out, but Danny Havoc was, of course, the veteran in that match and just leaned into it enough so he was able to pin Claxton and got the pinfall count while being put into that submission hold.
Wow, that's
Incredible.
awesome.
Yeah.
Death matches are
what I'm
not
saying.
just people smacking people.
It's not
with
just
weapons.
violence. Exactly. I think it also
right.
tells a story if you watch, if you watch it other than just waiting for the violence to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Cactus Jack also had another. I'm just going to keep on quoting him.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's no problem here.
He had a quote that death matches aren't about knowing the moves. They're about taking the moves.
Yeah.
Persevering
Absolutely.
through the pain and getting the win regardless. It's not so much of how much you can take. It's, or rather, it's not so much about the shock spectacle, although, yes, clearly shock
It is,
spectacle is
but,
involved.
Sure.
But for the wrestler's point of view, it's what are you willing to endure to get the win?
Right.
Gotcha.
What are you willing to do to someone else to get the win as well, too?
Yeah.
Because
same.
sometimes you will see some cases where wrestlers will look at their weapon and think, no, this is too much. I can't do this. But then their opponent might say, well, if you can't do it, I will.
What's crazier is that when I spoke to Mikey Anarchy, who works in UWF, and I think he also had a bunch of different shows Mania, or is that some shows Mania week? He spoke about how he loves everyone that like he wrestles, like they're all his best friends, and in his mind, if they don't hit him, if they don't like stiff him or hit him hard in the match, like that's he's your best friend when he hits you harder. Like that's his whole mindset of like I'm like you're my best friend. I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna beat the crap out of you, but just know that I love you. And
that was insane to me to hear. Listening to that interview, that was insane to me to hear. But it is. I've had friends who are just absolute deathmatch enthusiasts. I used to watch wrestling all the time. Photographer by the name of Andy. He does Burning Hammer photography. He does a lot of deathmatch shows. Yeah, I used to watch wrestling with him all the time because we grew up, 8 minutes away from each other. And I have a lot of friends that are into deathmatch wrestling. So I know it's a thing. There's a huge following behind it. It's never been my thing, but I will say this: having listened to some people and talked to some people in the deathmatch scene, I am more willing to give it a shot, and I'm looking forward to hopefully taking the podcast to a deathmatch show. I'd love to go see one.
Oh yeah.
All right, so back to Mania week. We've gotten through Monday. What else did you do Mania week?
All right, so then there's Tuesday, which is again at H2O. It was the Hustle Cup tournament, which traditionally is their tournament showing their rising talent, because up until about 2022, I believe, H2O was a school in addition to a wrestling company. And I do prefer to work with companies that are schools as well, because I do like catching people and seeing them evolve. So that's one of the things that I just enjoy seeing. So I realized that a lot of people want to see polished talent. I guess I've seen enough polished talent that I want to see people grow, learn in the ring, and figure out things and figure out how to do wrestling even better.
Sure.
And so it did begin as an all-student tournament, and it certainly invited other people that weren't students at H2O, and some of them were students at other academies as well too, because it's New Jersey. If you know that New Jersey has deregulated wrestling, and so as a result, we have more wrestling per square capita compared to other states. And so, the Hustle Cup was fantastic. The winner, spoiler, the winner was Kennedy Copeland, who is certainly no student, but is beloved at H2O, well, depending on what she's doing. But what was also fun was a match that Colby Carino had, because he was in the main event the previous night in a bloody brawl, a death match between him, Neil Diamond Cutter, and Joel Bateman. And so he complained. He complained to the fans, "How dare you? I did that painful match, and not one of you bought merchandise afterwards. So that's you're all just getting headlocks tonight."
Love that. Love that.
Oh, I think I've heard about this.
Yeah.
I think somebody else mentioned this to me, but go ahead and tell the story.
He did, well, mostly headlocks. When he was in trouble, he switched out of it. And I loved it because, again, I grew up on ECW, and I was seeing shades of the king of old school, Steve Carino, in him with that one there. And his father, of course, for those who don't know. And including one beautiful dive in which he jumps through. Let me see if the photo shows him jumping through the ropes or over the ropes. Beep, beep. We'll cut for time. Someone hum or something.
Someone hum for time. We're all
he jumped between the ropes. There we go.
There we go.
Right. And it looked like it was going to be a dive, but instead he jumped and managed to land on his feet and do a headlock.
Nice. That's really cool.
That's great.
It was just so seamlessly done. It was, I loved it. It was gorgeous.
Awesome.
All right. So
that was Tuesday.
That was Tuesday. Okay. Moving on. This busy
Wednesday was the beginning of choices being made.
week. Uh-oh.
So
Right.
first off, I already reached out to Sean once he announced the Labor of Love shows.
Mhm.
And I told him, hey, if you don't have a photographer, I'm calling dibs. And Sean was, of course, very enthusiastic at me working.
Mhm.
And so I was looking forward to the show. Unfortunately, that was the rainiest show that I had to work, which you already described.
Yep.
There was about maybe an inch or two's worth, depending on where you were standing
Yeah.
around the ring. The staff did their best to pump out the water, but
Not
I will
fast
say
enough.
that it was better than when I first went in there to check out my settings with a fellow photographer, Brian. Oh my gosh, I forget what his handle is. Brian, forgive me. But so we were just hanging out and watching as they did their best to get the water out of there. And so what you stood in was considerably improved over how it was before.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. There was at one point where I found an island and I stood on the island the whole time.
And just so everyone out there understands this, despite the fact that we were all standing in an inch to 2 inches of water, that was a packed to capacity tent
it was
for that
a
show.
full house.
Like,
That was awesome.
there was no moving whatsoever in there because it was just
Absolutely.
packed from floor to roof.
Mm-hmm.
It had been a while since I had attended a show in which the audience was allowed to come right up to the ring. So it was definitely a party atmosphere going
Yeah.
on there. And it's not like they were all standing out in the rain. There was a tent that was set up
Yes.
to
Yes.
go
there was a
over,
tent.
but
Mm-hmm.
at least no one got rained on. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I had to leave halfway through that show during intermission because I had intergender bonanza.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was fantastic because we had, for the main event, we had Sunny Kiss versus Zeta Steel.
That's
So-
awesome.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
And if you had been involved in New Jersey Indies as long as I have, you already have experiences with Sunny, and she's always fantastic. She's always been fantastic.
Amazing.
So while they're not on AEW anymore, I wish her nothing but success because she has
Same.
always been the hardest worker that you will find in any location.
Mhm.
Just absolutely love her. And her opponent was fantastic because I want to say she's only about 2 or 1 years in, but she already just mastered wrestling and being a heel, even though she's like maybe 5'2". Zeta Steel is hilarious.
Yeah, she's very good.
Yeah, she's just very talented for sure.
But also, it was the debut of Stan Styles as the Creamer, which was his tribute to Shredder. If you haven't seen
that
photos
guy
of this,
is a character. When we met him during, I believe, the first night, Russell John.
Yeah.
I love his logo. I love his whole thing. He was hilarious.
he's great.
I almost wish I saw that show just to see him, but we were so into it. We were so into it.
That's
and the thing
awesome.
is, you're catching him in his evil Stan Styles arc. You can tell he's evil because he's got a mustache and goatee.
Yeah,
Mhm,
right,
yeah,
right.
Sure.
Because when he used to get in trouble, he would just pull out some whipped cream and just splash it in someone's face, and it was fantastic. He was a real life cartoon come to life.
Right.
Like, instead of a pie, instead he's just got his ready whip ready and just blinding his opponents with it. It's just, it's
That's
brilliant.
awesome.
It's hilarious.
I love it.
Yeah.
So yes, Russell John. So let's go to Thursday. So yeah, we began with Russell John. That was an earlier show. So of course, some people couldn't make it. They probably had work. We had a little bit more elbow room. We had a little bit less rain. But,
Little
oh
bit,
my goodness,
yeah.
the matches that we had there. Mal versus Matt Mikowski.
Yes.
It was such a good match.
Incredible.
Just amazing stuff.
I love that they took advantage of fighting outside of the ring too.
Oh,
That
dude,
was fun.
dude. I saw Ralph with his camera run outside.
That was
He
such
was
a
out of there.
that was so cool. Yeah,
I might have some
I had been
photos of
waiting. I've been waiting for that match for a while because I know that was a really big, speaking to Billy Avery very early on when these shows were being put together, he had mentioned to me that there was a possibility that they could sign that match, and they worked very hard to get that match signed, and they were super excited to get that one.
Yeah.
That was one of their big gets for the two shows they did, and they were very excited about it. So I was happy to see how well the match went over. And yeah, as you said, it was an earlier show, so a lot of people didn't, the crowd wasn't as big as the night before, but I feel bad for anybody that missed it, because that was a great match.
Yeah, it was.
Another standout for me was the Edith Surreal Daniel Makabe match.
Oh,
because
man.
the last time I had photographed Daniel Makabe was 2019. So it was great to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
And what a treat. I got to photograph him again later that evening, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What else was going on that was fun at the Sean show?
You might have saw his last matches in the Northeast too, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
Bittersweet.
Yeah.
But hey, we caught him.
Yeah, right. Right.
That main event at the Thursday show, the 2 out of 3 falls tag match.
That was
just, I mean,
incredible.
I have seen things in that match I've never seen before in tag team wrestling. Like I became a huge fan of those two teams after that match.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh Air and Bangin' Matthews.
Yeah. So
good.
So
good.
I had seen what was probably their second match in that series. So
Okay.
I didn't. Here I thought it was their first match, but no, it was their second match. That was
Right.
at a previous Sean Henderson show in the summer.
Yeah.
And yeah, my goodness, they took it to each other. So you had Chicago versus Ottawa there. Or, no, wait, are they from Montreal or Ottawa? I forget. Junior, tell me. Anyway,
they're
Junior Benito
from the Great White North, no matter either way.
Right.
We know they're from Canada. They're imports.
Yeah.
But man, did they bring it.
Oh, yeah. I've caught them at Interspecies Wrestling, which is definitely from Ottawa originally.
Gotcha.
And they made certain to bring them to the States. And Sean Henderson, of course, is someone who is willing to build bridges to get lots of talent from out of state and try out with other people. And so, the Bang Brothers, they don't go by that anymore.
Nope.
Because
Bangin' Matthews.
it's Bangin' Matthews.
Yep,
Bangin' Matthews.
Yep.
They're from Chicago, and my goodness, they just will hustle. They are working so hard. If anything, they are reminding me a bit of how Leo Rush, who is a short man himself, will just do amazing things.
Right.
And I feel like that is some. I hope I'm not offending shorter wrestlers and shorter viewers, but I think that there is this attempt that is done by shorter wrestlers to just make themselves more, just showing that they can hang, and they are just going to town because they're substantially shorter than their opponents. Fresh Air, but my goodness, the impact that you're seeing from them.
You'd have never known that there was any sort of height difference between either of the teams, because they just, I mean, it was 2 out of 3 falls, and it went to the full 3 falls. And these are two guys. Well, these are two teams that hit the gas pedal at the very beginning and didn't let go until the end. Like it was just
crazy.
Yeah, it was incredible. For me, I mean, that was of all the indie stuff that week. That was my favorite match of all the indie stuff I'd seen. I just thought those guys went out there and put on a show. They were. It felt to me and not that they had to, not that there was anything, but it felt to me like they were going out there and trying to prove something. Like they were trying to prove, hey, we are the best thing you're going to see this week. I feel like they had that mentality.
Yeah, they were definitely on that level.
They put on a show.
I do remember the audience chanting "Still the show," but at the same time, they're the main event, so they better. They'd
Yeah.
be better send
Yeah.
people home
That's fair.
happy.
Well,
That's fair.
yeah.
But they did.
All right. So
There
that's
was some
Thursday
other
afternoon.
fun stuff in that show as well too, because
Mhm.
he also had that hardcore match that you were talking about, where you wind up with Connor Claxton taking that thumbtacks to the face thing.
Oh yeah,
No, thank you.
a mix of thumbtacks and Legos.
Yeah.
He went into.
No good. No good.
Yeah, that was a crazy match because they took it up another notch from the night before, because the night before had styrofoam with forks, plastic forks, and then it had, as I like to call it, the exploding storage box of doom. It just shattered into hundreds of pieces.
Crazy.
But
So
they
loud.
took it up a notch the following day. Like they really, it was something to see.
Fork boards, they'll fork you up.
Yes, they will.
Yes,
Yep.
indeed.
Oh boy.
So after that, my second show of the evening was Big Dan's 40th birthday party.
Oh yes.
Yep.
First off, the idea of Jimmy Lloyd fighting Ultramantis Black is already a strange idea because of the enmity CZW and Chikara had when Jimmy finally started training.
Interesting.
My goodness, it was a death match.
Yeah.
It was.
And it was awesome.
It was. I don't think. Okay, so here's a funny story. Before Dan Champion's birthday party even started, it was in between the end of Euphoria and Dan Champion's birthday party, and so we're sitting in the area where we were set up, and as we're sitting there, we see Jimmy Lloyd walk toward I think he came out of the hallway where the restrooms were, and he was just carrying a door.
Yeah.
And we're like, uh-oh. And then he starts coming through and carrying other various items into the bar area, and we're like, uh-oh, this is gonna get interesting real quick. But yeah, that was before the birthday party even started. He's just like, coming along, carrying a door like it's nothing. Of course, for Jimmy Lloyd, it probably is nothing.
Well, at the same time, what do you think is happening when wrestlers are looking for all that plunder that's under the ring?
Right.
They were there before.
Yeah. I've never really thought about the before, but now I will.
Exactly.
So that was hilarious, but also a personal point of pride because that was my first time photographing Ultramantis Black in official capacity. So that was fantastic.
That's
instead
awesome.
of just as a fan.
Yeah.
Just shooting the shit with him in the back. And and what was also funny to me was just talking with some folks who this might have been another day actually, but talking with some folks who were saying like, oh man, I would never do light tubes, it's so dangerous. And and so I asked him, so what's the worst that you're willing to do? And so the guy said, oh, I'd work the Pujambi prison match for GCW.
Oh god. Oh no.
Okay.
Boy.
So I didn't realize I was talking to one of the Bollywood boys.
Nice.
Who I later photographed that night. But
Very cool.
we're still on Thursday. So immediately after, I found out the hard way that 676 can be a problem.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Because, again, I just moved to Philly. I barely drive in it, but oh well.
You'll learn. Oof.
Yep.
No, public transit is so great in Philly. I don't really need to drive most of
I
it.
will say that.
It
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
It is. That's fair.
Yeah.
So, I had to get to Action Wrestling, which, honestly, I'm hearing a lot of buzz saying that Action Wrestling was what stole indie wrestling for Mania Week, but
Yeah. Interesting.
Action Wrestling was fantastic because they're based out of Atlanta, and so I was seeing a lot of talent that I'm not used to seeing, and also it was great to see Sugar Dunkerton, who I rarely get to see these days. So I was happy to see him, even if he was being a cowardly member of the Good Hand stable.
Right.
I was happy to photograph him just doing his thing. Honestly, just let the man read a dictionary and he will make it entertaining. Right. Like, he's got everything. He can wrestle, he can talk, he can make you laugh, he can make you think. But what else was going on there? Got to photograph Alex Kane at last, so that was fantastic. Seeing how the
Very cool.
suplex assassin works.
Mhm.
It's very rare that I get to see a match where Kobe Carino very much so appears to be the underdog.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, he tried to hit him with headlocks, and that
Love
wasn't
Love that.
the best strategy for him. So I'm sure he's going to rethink about it,
Right.
try
Yeah.
a different strategy next time. What was apparently the most talked about match was the dog collar match
Oh.
between Mad Dog Connolly versus Demus Demonio. And that was certainly a standout, but there were a lot of standouts from that show. But this one was standing out for me because I wound up breaking a toe while photographing that
Oh
match.
no!
Get out of here.
Jeez.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Oh,
Dodge all the
So-
glass, all the shrapnel, but
break a toe.
break a toe.
And it wasn't anything weird. I just took a bad step and I just heard something pop and I felt
Oh
pain.
boy. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That'll do it.
Fantastic.
And so, yeah, that match was wild. It might have been a bit controversial with the venue owner, but it was just a wild match. The audience was literally throwing money into the ring with how
Oh,
happy
wow.
they were with that match.
Wow.
Crazy. That's
Jeez.
wild.
Yeah. In fact, the match prior was Gringo Loco versus Dr. Cerebro. And so Dr. Cerebro is definitely a luchador, and they were throwing money for him as well, too. So
Nice.
they kept it going. They were keeping the lucha tradition happy there,
That's awesome.
showing their appreciation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the main event, I got spoiled. I had another Daniel Makabe match.
Nice.
His final match against Timothy Thatcher.
Oh wow.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's
That's right.
I'm sure that had to be incredible.
That was a banger of a match.
It was so ground based and it was fantastic. And it's like, again, people think I'm just here for the death match and the gore. And I realize, with my little stage name of Morgore at the end there, I'm giving people the appearance that I'm a scream queen that wants that. But
Yeah.
I love a good scientific match.
Yeah.
So that was
Absolutely.
just an absolute treat. And Tim Thatcher, just
Sure.
the greatest fake British person ever. Spoiler, he's from California.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, geez, that's tag that as a Wrestling with Life exclusive. Timothy Thatcher, supposedly
British.
from California. All right.
Supposedly.
So Friday, oh golly, so Friday, walking with taped up toes to the skate park underneath I-95 for New Fear City.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with New Fear City, I was photographing it before it was officially New Fear City. I was probably the first wrestling dedicated photographer to capture Casanova Valentine's fights, which were done in bars. Basically, he felt like he was losing his edge in wrestling. He was spending more time doing bouncing than he was doing wrestling. And so he decided, I'm going to do my send-off to wrestling. I'm going to do performance art for the bars that I'm working in. And I'm going to have what looks like a match, except without a ring. New York is heavily regulated. By this point that he was doing it in, New York doesn't allow you to do chairs. New York doesn't allow you to do tables. New York requires that you have a doctor present. New York requires that you have an ambulance present.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So instead, he gets around it by saying that it's performance art. And there's no ring at all. So brawls in bars. And so I was the first wrestling dedicated photographer to capture his matches. And then I moved away from the area, so I wasn't able to catch them as much as I used to. And he formed New Fear City from that, and he just started building it up more. And great for him that he's got this brand going on. New Fear City, if you don't know, it was this propaganda piece by cops in the 70s when they were upset that they weren't getting pay raises or something, and they
Okay.
claimed that New York is unsafe to be in after 5 o'clock or something like that. You will
Right.
die if you're outside and it's 5 o'clock. And so, and it's got this hilarious derpy Grim Reaper on the cover, and so Casanova has it tattooed on one of his fists, and they just do this thing where they're trying to make New York grimy again. And so they have their wrestling that isn't officially wrestling.
Right.
And so that is the only death matches that you'll catch in New York. And so they brought it to Philly. It's got a punk feel because they're usually brawling in bars themselves or on wherever outdoors. And this was in a skate park. And how punk is that? And it's
Right.
in fact, at some point, cops were clearly called on them, and Casanova was having a Taipei death match. Do you know what a Taipei death match is?
I do.
I'm not aware.
Okay.
Yes.
So Taipei is the capital of Taiwan.
Right.
It is a industry leader in microprocessors. It's a very industrialized city. So I have no idea why ECW decided that Taipei death matches means that it's the Rambo fight where you get your hands covered in sticky substances and you grind them in glass.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Right.
I think they meant to say Thai death match, but instead it came out as Taipei.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Fun.
Ian Rotten and Axel Rotten were the first to do it in ECW. So, yeah, Casanova is having a match where he's fist fighting a dude with glass on his hands while cops are watching, and they don't care. Big Lou Nixon from England. They were just having. It was just a great fight from top to bottom, and also for the locals. They had Gritty come out with a barbed wire wrapped hockey stick versus Cillian McMurphy while he was wearing a Pittsburgh Penguins jersey.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm from North Jersey, so I'm just confused why no one's wearing Devil's colors, but whatever.
Fair.
There was an incident in which a fan that was in attendance apparently was going through an overdose, and so one of the photographers, Red Shoes, happens to carry Narcan on him, and one of the wrestlers, Lindsay Snell, knows how to apply it, and so they took care of that poor kid and saved that life.
That's awesome.
So
sad, but like it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild, but still, it's a great reminder. Carry Narcan on you if you can, and learn how to apply it. Save life.
Right.
So that was New Fear City. What happened Friday night? Oh yeah, ICW No Holds Bar, Volume 63, I believe.
Hey, more violence. More violence.
Yeah, more violence, and this one. It was called the International Deaf Summit for a reason, because they had Japanese talent, they had Canadian talent, they had New Zealand talent, they had Australian talent. I'm certain there were probably other folks from somewhere else. And it was a genuine international deathmatch summit. It was fantastic. Cool. The crowd was wild. It was fantastic. And what was some of the standouts for me? Who was it Danny DeMonto fought? Because that was a standout for me. Oh, Danny DeMonto fought Alex Colon, who had been gone for a while, and he came back for this match, and that was just because Alex Colon, I remember when he first did a really bad death match, and I showed him pictures while he was being patched up. This was back in 2016. I'm certain he's done matches that were violent before, but he was ripped up really bad. This was, I think, Danny Havoc's retirement match. And like chunks ripped out of him. And I was just showing him. In fact, the EMT was like, hey, take a look at this. You got to look at this wound right here. And like, okay. And so since then, I've been paying attention to wounds for battle damage photos. More
Oh,
so
boy.
for the wrestler, not so much for the whole like, hey, you want to see something gruesome, but just letting them see what damage they had so I can show them
Sure.
on the camera. This is what's going on right now.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, give it a little help.
Yeah.
But that's also something that a lot of deathmatch fans want to see. They want to see the ripped skin, so
Yeah. Yeah.
gotta show them that.
Yeah. Okay.
Golly. What was
man.
also great is that throughout the entire week, I'm seeing Tank, who is a Southern wrestler who has been doing it since 1998, 1996.
Oh, wow.
And like the dude is still going. And I love the promo that he had going into this. He's saying, look, I know I'm a little older. Things are stacked against me. But you know what? Things were stacked against Terry Funk when he won the ECW title.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was a great reminder. And he even did some moves in homage to Terry Funk with some spinning toe holds.
Nice. Nice.
Very cool.
Oh, I forgot to mention that in all of this, in Action Wrestling the night before, Warhorse versus Cruel, it was for the independent wrestling title, the IWTV title, in which a new title was made because Cruel had been trying to unify a fake belt and the actual belt, and the powers that be decided, no, you need a new belt. And so I was there for the first defense after he got the genuine unified title.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And that was the four-way between Tank, Big Lou Nixon again, the same man who just had a match against Casanova Valentine, and Neil Diamond Cutter. Oh, Neil's fantastic. I love Neil. Oh, golly. Yeah, there's just so much. Oh, I forgot about that. There was the Shaza McKenzie versus Tara Zepp match, in which Shaza wound up doing a split leg drop through light tubes onto her opponent.
Wow.
I happened to see that, and
That's
that is insanity.
crazy.
Yeah, that was
Holy
crazy.
crap.
That was insane. I don't even know what to say.
Deathmatch wrestling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, Mania week, you're going to turn it up a notch.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at the same time, I would say that ICW is consistent in their product.
Right.
It's not my first ICW show. They are very focused on their deathmatch wrestling. In fact, if you don't know, when they do run matches in rings, they take down the ropes and they replace them with chains.
Okay.
There you go.
And when they don't have rings, they make an octagon.
Oh.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's Friday. And so I say bad decisions because I got to edit all of these.
Right.
So Saturday. We're at Saturday now. At
Saturday.
last.
Almost done.
Saturday, my first show is very early in the morning. It's for GCW, FU's Big Gay Brunch 9.
Right.
And I was asked, at GCW, it's very popular. You do not, with any location, if you're a photographer, you're there because you're invited. But frequently, sometimes there's a little wiggle room if you know enough people. With GCW, it's a lot more regimented. You do not photograph it unless you are invited by the photo director, Earl Gardner.
Crazy.
And Earl tapped me for that very early on. Earl was also tapped by Pro Wrestling Illustrated to photograph WrestleMania itself on behalf of the magazine.
That's
By
cool.
the way, by Pro Wrestling Illustrated, it's still going strong. Go ahead, get your magazine.
Yep.
I mean, I was featured in this magazine.
Oh, wow. Look at
I'm coming
that.
up in
That's cool.
their WrestleMania recap. Spoiler.
Nice.
So, with the Big Gay Brunch, I got to see a lot of people I hadn't seen in years. Jamie Senegal, I remember when she was a rookie. So it was great seeing her in action. She teamed up with Edith Surreal against the runway. Got to see... who else did I get to see? Actually, one person that I was very excited to see was actually one of the announcers, Jay Rose, who is a announcer, but also the promoter for Naptown Wrestling out of Indianapolis.
Oh,
So it was great
very nice.
seeing them just in action because Jay Rose is the most energetic person in the room and began the show by running around the ring repeatedly, Naruto style, before
That's
jumping
great.
into the ring to announce it. And that was just fantastic.
It's always fun.
A talent I had never heard of before, Monomoth. He's from Thailand, apparently. Came
Wow.
to the ring with these gorgeous feathers,
Mhm.
like angel wings, and just it was. You know what? Could I have been sharing photos this entire time? Because I see that present button, but oh well, it's a little late.
It's all right. We'll direct people to your social media where hopefully they
Absolutely.
can see some of these
Absolutely.
things.
There
You
we
see
go.
that running on the bottom of the screen there.
Yep.
That's a great plug for your socials.
Great plug. Great plug.
And when in doubt, there's always amymoregore.com. So that'll
Yes.
direct you to any of my socials as well. Yeah, that's
And there you
like
have
the
it.
easiest
Yeah.
way to find me for anything. There was that hardcore match between Billy Dixon and Rina Yamashita, which
Mm.
Pennsylvania will limit the amount of hardcore you can do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so they managed to do some of it with chairs and with doors. And it was a brutal fight because Rena, I have seen Rena use fire as well as barbed wire and other things. She
Crazy.
toned it down a little bit, but she's still a hard fighter. And Billy
Mhm.
Dixon, her opponent, is no stranger to death matches. Billy
yeah.
is willing to bring the fight to anyone,
Hmm.
but it was Rena's day that day.
Yeah.
And also, I think Billy probably could have. He looked fantastic, but he was wrestling with a backpack, and it's like maybe the backpack was holding you back.
Right. Right.
You don't often hear that in the world of wrestling, but maybe the backpack you're wearing in the ring is
It's
not helping.
Yeah, it's not helping out.
It looked great though. It matched his overalls.
Well, listen,
Well, listen.
that's half the battle right there is matching
Exactly.
your backpack to your overalls.
Exactly.
I've been in that situation before where my overalls and my backpack didn't match, and let me tell you, it did not go well.
Well, a good chunk of the Big Gay Brunch was the pageantry. So,
Well, of course.
Of
yeah.
course,
Yes.
So
of course.
a lot of people were turning it up with their fashion.
Well,
and
of
so,
course.
like,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's that's an event that people wait for every year. Like that's a big thing. So
runs multiple times a year.
yeah. Well, whenever it's always something that people look forward to
Right.
for many reasons.
And also exciting for me, the first time I got to photograph Dark Sheik fighting against my homegirl, Sunny.
Nice.
Well, there you go.
So
Nice.
Sunny
Always
Kiss
There you
versus Dark Sheik.
Right.
And that was fantastic. And of course,
Yeah.
I got to talk to Sheik later that night about how she was giggling at the fact that she was wrestling pretty much naked with her outfit.
All right
boy.
then. Well,
Nearly.
okay.
Thing? Fun.
Nearly.
Yeah.
Really?
And
Well,
so, hey, she enjoyed it. And
sure
well,
she did.
sure. I'm sure many people
Sure she
enjoyed it.
did.
Yeah. I'm sure it was a real hit.
well, more like a real kick because she is kick.
Okay. All right then. I
you go.
stand corrected.
But yeah.
Actually, I sit corrected.
So one of the things that is always one of the things as a photographer that I will do is I will do my best to learn wrestlers' timing.
Mhm.
And so when I'm dealing with someone new, I'm not always going to get their timing, but
Sure.
Sheik and I did review some of the photos, and she was pretty happy with what I was able to catch.
Good.
Cool.
Good.
So-
Yeah.
Cool.
But at the same time, she is a challenge because she is a big veteran. She has been doing this since like the mid 2000s or something like that.
Mhm.
You know, she has been involved in wrestling longer than you realize, and she just has so much experience and is just going to pull up things that you're not going to expect.
Mhm. Sure.
Right.
Speaking of unexpected, I was asked by Earl, since he had to go handle WrestleMania, to cover GCW's Clusterfuck.
Nice.
Oh, well, there you go.
Nice.
That's a
So-
nice little surprise, huh?
That's
Yes, so my reward for
fantastic.
all that work was extra work.
Yay. Love that.
Yeah, but
Just love that.
I did. What are you gonna do? Say no? Come on.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
went home and I took a nap because
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yes.
I
that
wish I would have
begins.
had the foresight to take a nap at some point during the week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it was pretty easy. I don't live that far away from the venue, so
Well,
Well,
in a
there you
hotel
go.
room, I could have taken a nap. I just
Yeah.
didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I was there all week. I could have just,
Yep. Yep.
but I didn't even think about it. I was
Mhm.
just like, nope, I'm just gonna go till I pass out.
Pretty much.
so that began with the Punjabi prison match. That was the only match they had before the clusterfuck itself.
Yeah.
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 The Punjabi prison match was.
Interesting.
I try to avoid using that word because it gets overused a lot.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, but
more
it's
like that.
definitely-
It was more violent than I expected it to be. But
Yeah.
at the same time, again, I was speaking with that Bollywood wrestler, and
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
and he said, yeah, the worst that he was willing to do was the Punjabi prison match. Of course, if you saw the photos of what happened to them afterwards, they
Oh,
were
I was
bleeding like
watching
sick
it.
pigs.
Yeah, I was watching it
Mm.
live. For the most
Yeah.
part, I think I might have passed out halfway through because there was a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I would also say, yes, death matches are deadly. Yes,
Mhm.
there is a high risk of pain, but
Mm.
barbed wire is not going to kill you. Glass,
No.
for the most part, is not likely to kill you. Bamboo, however,
Yeah.
will kill you.
Yeah.
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 There's, oh, yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. And most people probably don't think about it in that way either. They
No.
don't realize. But, wow.
A bamboo shoot can penetrate through your skin
I don't
just
know
as
much
easily,
about-
and
yeah.
it'll have and it's not going to break.
Ugh.
Golly. And so, yeah, that was Violence is Forever versus Medio Extremo and Ciclope. And what was the third team? Oh, I'm blanking out on who the third team was. Oh, whoops. I'm going into this week's photos instead of last week's.
Nice. Smart.
So if I'm not mistaken, while you're looking for that, at most of the shows that you have talked about are available on independentwrestling.tv, IWTV.
All of these matches except for the GCW, which is on Fight TV
There you
Right.
go. There you go.
So
or Triller TV. What's
yeah,
Triller?
It's the same thing.
the Fight TV. I don't understand any of
Fight
that.
TV
but
by Triller. I don't know.
yes, it's weird, but
Weird, odd.
a ton of great shows available out there for people to see who could not be there, who could not see it at the time that it was happening.
Right.
Still some opportunities for you to see all of these amazing things that Amy has been describing for us here.
Well, whoever was the third team, I can't really find their names right now, but everyone tried their hardest to get by in that match, but Violence is Forever retained their titles, as most folks who follow GCW know. I do want to say that I remember an earlier match that week, Violence is Forever was taking on the Ugly Sucklings at Action Wrestling.
They were
And
amazing.
Violence is Forever, their theme song is The Cranberry Zombie.
Mhm.
And the Ugly Sucklings made themselves the world's greatest villains by preventing the audience from singing along by starting the match way too early.
Love
No.
it.
That's classic.
Dastardly.
Classy.
Such a great
Classy.
move. See, no, that's why the heels are so much better, because they get to have fun like that. They have fun by ruining everyone else's.
Yep.
Love it.
Then there was the clusterfuck. Oh my
Yep.
goodness. Oh,
Yep.
so much was going on there. So we had our yearly Sexy Eddie Being Naked event.
Yep.
Um,
No hand stunner on cheeseburger.
which
no
I
hand
have a photo on.
Oh, nice.
No hand stunner. Love it.
Jeez.
How
Love
did
it.
he hold it together? You got to realize Sexy Eddie has been wrestling also since the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Listen,
So do not deny the secrets of a master of his craft.
I'm gonna tell you right now, if you are someone like Cheeseburger and you are wrestling a naked man who has both hands on his package, and he gives you a no hands naked stunner. You, Cheeseburger, are the MVP of that moment
Right.
for taking that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there would have to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in my hand before I did that. Just saying.
Cheeseburger brought this on himself, though. He was the one that pulled down Eddie's pants.
Oh, listen.
Fair.
Oh, poor Cheeseburger. He just doesn't get it.
Well,
You would think he would know what he was getting with Sexy Eddie.
Right.
He is also a master of his craft as well. I will not deny that.
Absolutely.
Sure.
All of his students from the Worldwide Dojo, they are excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Cheeseburger, despite taking that, you got to realize Sexy Eddie wasn't able to get everything on that stunner because Cheeseburger was the one who eliminated him.
Yep.
And there you have it.
There it is.
But of course, who was it that eliminated Cheeseburger? I think it might have been Chitan, the Ronin Japanese mascot.
Yes.
Amazing.
John Oliver did a segment on this. If you don't know, Japan's got mascots for virtually everything. It could be a business, it could be a town, it could be a neighborhood.
There's a Twitter
Facts.
account that reports on all the different crazy mascots they've got. Yeah, it's insane.
Chitan is not associated with anything and is just a little chaos bringer and just goes and does silly videos everywhere, and tried wrestling and tried fighting Aja Khan. I got to photograph Aja Khan.
Oh wow!
I got to photograph Aja Khan.
That's
awesome.
incredible. That's
awesome.
I've seen pictures of Aja Khan from the week. I know she did some. Seminars, and you know, she was available to people during the week, and that's just. I mean, just your excitement jumps through the screen just thinking about like that name Aja Kong, and you're like, I got to photograph her. Like, that's just
facts.
I mean, it's insane.
To your earlier question, did you have a mark out moment recently?
I
forgot. I totally marked out for Aja Kong.
Yep.
There it is. That's the one.
A promoter asked me, well, no, actually, a promoter was asking her to take a photo backstage, and I offered, hey, do you want me to take the photo for you? And so I did. But then I realized what I did. I came to my senses, realized, wait, shit, that's Aja Kong.
Right.
And I couldn't think to even ask, could I get a photo also?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, sometimes. Yeah, I've had those moments in my early days.
So there we go. That was my most recent
very nice
mark out moment. And I haven't had one in years. Oh, golly.
Yep.
Like, even when I ask for photos, it's more of a congenial, hey, I know your work. I appreciate it. Are you up for a photo together?
Right.
You know, very reasonable tone. I'm not like hyperventilating at them.
Sure.
At Aja Kong, I briefly forgot my words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. Well, that's quite a Mania week you had there.
Heck yeah.
Oh, God.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you hit some of the absolute biggest shows of the week. You got to see a ton of great wrestlers and great wrestling, and
absolutely.
That's what I love so much about Mania week anymore is that you know, obviously you have WrestleMania and you have the spectacle of WrestleMania, but for anybody who even slightly enjoys the independent wrestling scene, it is always the greatest place to be because you just get to I mean,
absolutely.
Not to mention, you know, all of the shows that you just talked about and all of the other shows that were going on. Like, you had so many options of things to go see this week. If you're an independent wrestling fan, wherever WrestleMania is being held, it is always the best place to be. And it's so great that, you know, you get an entire week's worth of entertainment and just all these different choices. And it's really, you know, in the last 5-10 years, it's really become this huge thing.
Absolutely.
And it's so good for the industry as a whole. And the fact that WWE now is now acknowledging other companies, they're acknowledging other wrestlers' past experiences, like where they're willing to actually name, you know, companies and things like that instead of just pretending. You know, it gives it that much more legitimacy when these big companies come in and they're able to do something WrestleMania week. So yeah, it sounded like you just had a blast from beginning to end besides breaking your toe.
Right.
Just tape it up, keep going.
Yep. That's it.
All right.
Which, by the way, that is the actual treatment for broken toes.
Yeah, because they don't.
For anyone who's never done that,
they don't do anything for you.
There you go.
Same thing with like broken ribs. They wrap it and tell you to rest up. You know, there are certain things they just can't do anything. And you would have to pick the one thing where they're just like, put some tape on it.
Yeah, right.
You know? Yeah, here's a Band-Aid.
Yeah,
you know,
like, take that. Right.
Well. All right. Well, it's been great getting to talk to you and learn a little bit about some of your experiences, the things you do. Getting to sit down and talk about all the Mania Week stuff was personally for me was a very exciting part of this because you know, obviously we were in the area as well Mania Week, but just to hear about experiences at other shows, you know, especially, you know, you're the first photographer that we've been able to talk to, so just getting, you know, your perspective on seeing some of these things has been a lot of fun. Obviously we have your socials running along the bottom there. And as you mentioned previously, people can find you at amimoregore.com. That's the best way for people to reach out to you, I take it?
Yes.
All right. Do you have any upcoming shows that you're attending that you'd like to mention?
Well, there is the Uninvited at H2O that is coming at the end of the month.
What a name for a show.
Well, hey, listen.
The Uninvited gets invited to the Uninvited.
Yeah.
So that's April 27th.
Okay.
And then there is another show on, is that Sean Henderson or is that H2O again? On May 11th. Regardless, support H2O because honestly, I nearly gave up on photography in 2020 after I nearly lost a thumb. H2O reached out to me and told me that I was always welcome to be with them while I was recovering.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I owe H2O, Matt Tremont, so much. So if you're in the area, they're local. You're going to have a fun time when you go to an H2O show. You're going to see a variety. You're going to see high flying. You're going to see hard brawling. You're going to see hardcore. You're going to see scientific. You're going to have a great time.
Right.
Yeah. And we always love talking about the good people in wrestling on our shows. We love to highlight those people that are just good people for the sport of professional wrestling. Because we always,
absolutely,
you know, we need good people in this industry. We need good people that care about the workers, that care about, you know, the support staff and just are good people in general. So it's always good to hear stories like that where someone, you know, reaches out and just, you know, really shows that they're a good person for this industry. So that's great to hear. All right. Well, this has been a very fun episode. This is actually our longest Wrestling with Life, but being able to, we usually try to keep this to about an hour, but once we started getting into like the Mania Week stuff, and it's like, you know what, let's just let it roll, because that's
right.
It's always interesting to hear about these things from different perspectives, or you know, inside perspectives, things like that. People who get to see it up close and personal. So we appreciate all the time that you gave us here today.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. So, guys, this has been another great episode of Wrestling with Life, episode number 10. Sean, again, can't believe we're here. 10 episodes in already. It's time has been flying by.
What is time?
Yeah, what is time? So, yeah, that's gonna do it for us here at Wrestling with Life. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Join us over on Patreon. We've got some great exclusives over there for you, and you get Wrestling with Life 5 days earlier. So, with that being said, guys, we will see you next time.
See you, folks.
Hey, this is ABJ of the ABJ Podcast, and you're listening to the Opinion City Wrestling with Live series exclusively on Patreon. Enjoy.
Good night, sweetheart, where else time to go? Good night, sweetheart, where Thanks for watching this presentation. Like, share, and subscribe for more.